Who's there?
The American Homefront.
Today we're going to attempt to answer the fundamental question, how did the war change America? In many ways actually, but we can divide it into two overarching categories, socially and economically.
To begin with the social aspect, a group that was greatly affected during World War II was women. Women were just beginning to fight for their role as equal members in society. A great social figure for women was Rosie the Riveter. Rosie the Riveter was a propaganda image intended to inspire women to join the workforce because it was their patriotic duty. Women left their low-paying household jobs to join the defense industry. Over 350,000 women served in the Army. Women made up only 24% of the labor force in 1939 and 36% of the labor force in 1945. In the short term, the majority of women remained clustered in low-wage service jobs, and the government initially encouraged them to take industrial jobs, but later encouraged them to return home. Yet, in the long term, women's participation in the 1940s rebounded and continued to rise over the rest of the 20th century, bringing major changes to family life.
In addition to women, the war had many impacts on the black people's life and their image in the society. Besides fighting with the Japanese in the Pacific, many African Americans joined the industrial workforce in the home front. Many workers complained of differential treatment, and many found ways to combat the racism at the workplace. In order to protect blacks from discrimination, President Roosevelt had issued two executive orders banning discrimination in defense industries, first in 1941 and then again in 1943. This proved to be a revolutionary change because up until this point, daily life between blacks and whites had been segregated.
Mexican Americans challenged long-standing practices of discrimination as well. Throughout much of the United States, thousands of signs read "No Mexicans Allowed," meaning that they were confined to low-paying jobs and land work. However, the League of Latin American Citizens and the Congress of Spanish-Speaking Peoples wished to end Mexican discrimination once and for all. Yet, to meet wartime labor demands, thousands of Mexican workers were brought under the Bracero program, meaning armed. This program highlighted the oppressive condition Mexican American laborers were forced to withstand. Due to evident discrimination, the protection of the rights of citizens and workers became more important in the United States during the war.
Next, we move on to the economical aspect of the American Homefront. The war industry brought about the end of the Great Depression. Although many Americans were against the war and in favor of isolationism, World War II allowed for the U.S. to rebuild its economy. In doing this, there had to be conversion from the production of civilian goods to the production of war materials. The production of weapons and war materials created many jobs, including ones in factories, and specifically, it created the first ever military draft. By late 1943, two-thirds of the economy was directly involved in the war effort. The government paid for these military expenses by raising taxes and borrowing money. Taxes on personal incomes and business profits paid half of the cost of the war.
In addition, financing and coordinating the war required extreme cooperation from the government and several private businesses. During the war, the number of American citizens employed by the government increased to 3.8 million, a higher rate than in the New Deal. The War Production Board persuaded businesses to produce military necessities. For example, the War Production Board encouraged Ford and General Motors to build tanks rather than cars. However, to secure maximum war production, the War Production Board worked with larger businesses exclusively. The nation's 56 largest corporations received 3/4 of the war contracts. The top 10 received a third. By working together in this manner, the government and the American corporations financed 86,000 tanks, 296,000 airplanes, 15 million rifles, and 6,500 cargo ships and naval vessels. Because of this efforts, American companies produced 70% of the total industrial output by 1945.
On the home front during World War I, most people were unified in a belief of American industrialism and strength. The mindset of the American people was best encapsulated by one of FDR's fireside chats in 1942. Quote, "But there is one front and one battle where everyone in the United States, every man, woman, child, is on action and will be privileged to remain in action throughout the war. That front is right here at home. in our daily lives, in our daily tasks. Here at home, everyone will have the privilege of making whatever self-denial is necessary, not only to supply our fighting men, but to keep economic structure of our country fortified and secure during and after the war.